A Leprechaun 4 in Space is a fourth film of the Leprechaun film series. This one's directed by Brian Trenchard Smith. This one is a direct-to-video. It's just a weird film overall because there's no context for the space stuff. Essentially, Leprechaun is kidnapped Princess Zarina of a sort of space empire and tempting her with his gold in order to become a king. He wishes to have status and look down on people. However, Dr. Mittenham is like an eccentric scientist with two assistants, one a doctor, and they're on a mission with some space marines in order to kill the monster, I guess. Even though the movie doesn't care what the plot is, but essentially the space marines go up against the leprechaun, temporarily defeat him, and the princess is injured, so they take her on the spaceship, and the leprechaun follows them and basically causes general mayhem. So this movie, adjusted for inflation, has a budget of 1.6 million, which is about 3 million in today's. So the movie looks fine, and it's got some weird visuals for the ship, and it's got good sets and outfits and everything, and there's nothing particularly wrong. It's just they used up all the budget for the sci-fi set dressing, didn't leave anything for the horror and the gore. So there's like a lightsaber kill that's done off screen, body's covered by a table, there's some bloodless kill scenes, some uninspired stuff. Very strange concept of having the leprechaun be in space. This is the kind of movie that sort of influenced those sort of, Jason in space, because this took place 5 years before that movie. And, there's Fast 9 with going into space as well. So, it makes that joke, but the movie's just not very interesting. It's not scary. It's barely funny. There's a weird drag sequence with the cyborg leader. One of the soldiers is the cab driver in Total Recall, which he would do 2 years later. So, he gets that in. But, the movie looks fine. There's some cool practical effects with some mutation stuff happening at the end. But overall, the kills are really uninspired. Don't like the plot. It's not a very fun time. It's a weird concept for sure, but the movie's dog shit. So I give Leprechaun 4 a 3 out of 10. Leprechaun 5 in the Hood is the fifth film of the Leprechaun film series. This one is also direct-to-video, different director. This one is a return to form for the series, in my opinion. The prologue is about Mack Daddy, a low-level rapper who, him and his friend find the treasure trove underneath a sort of old apartment building where they find a stash of leprechaun gold. However, they also find a petrified leprechaun, take the necklace off, and it unfreezes our nasty little mythic folk creature, and it kills Mack Daddy's companion. However, Mack Daddy is able to escape. And many years later, maybe like 30, Mack Daddy is now a big shot producer, and we're following three characters: Stray Bullet, Butch, and Postmaster P. Three aspiring rappers who wish to make it big. However, Mack Daddy disrespects them, and they get mad. They rob the place, and they accidentally free the leprechaun from his perch by taking off the necklace because they think it's bling. And now our leprechaun is back, and mayhem ensues. So the reason why I call this movie a return to form is because same budget as Leprechaun 4 in Space, but more gore in this one. And some of the kills are still a bit lazy. There's like one kill where the leprechaun just chokes a guy out. And in fact, the leprechaun's not in the movie for the first half a lot. Occasional kills here or there. But they also throw in a weird sexual element. One of the one character is able to seduce the leprechaun. Later, the leprechaun ends up having a harem of women. So it's adding some new lore. There's also a magical flute that can entrance people. So we're introducing some new elements that we haven't seen, because I felt Leprechaun 4 in Space sort of stepped away from the folklore aspect of the leprechaun. The first three films have a lot of rules, a lot of ways to sort of trick the leprechaun. And if you take, all the earthly stuff away, it's just like a leprechaun in space, and it's kind of weird, and there's no rules or anything. So this one is a nice return to form. We're getting a nice urban element. The rapping storyline is actually pretty prevalent, and overall pretty interesting film. It's definitely really tongue-in-cheek, but it's really fun. Ice-T's there giving it his all, and even though it's ridiculous, it's basically Leprechaun in the ghetto. It's a lot of fun. So I give Leprechaun 5 a 5 out of 10. Leprechaun 6 Back to the Hood is the 6th film of the Leprechaun film franchise. The last one to star Warwick Davis, but this one is essentially a little bit different. It's got the same urban flavor as the 5th film, but might be the best film in the series. The film opens with the Leprechaun being defeated by a preacher and his body being banished underneath the playground of a community center. He doesn't show up again for about 30 minutes. Instead, we get some character development with a hairdresser. Our main character has a friend group, an ex who becomes a gangster, a weed head friend, and another co-worker who wants to go to college, so they each have their own wants and needs. However, she falls through some wreckage at the playground and finds the fabled pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. And each piece of gold is worth about $4,000 to $5,000. So one shopping montage later, and they're all happy in new lives. Her ex is doing more gangster stuff. Her marijuana friend buys a lot of weed, and then of course the Leprechaun shows up for some general mayhem. So this movie is the strongest, I feel, because it's a return to form. There's some really good gore, even though the creative kills aren't really done well, because the Leprechaun just spends most of the movie just shoving his arm through people. He's really strong and violent in this one, and Warwick Davis is back in fine form. It's a nice return to form for the series in general. It's more horror. It's just, you know, the little mythical folk creature comes after people, hurts them. That's all you need. Leprechaun is a really interesting sort of universal sort of concept, because you can take, I mean, they did a space movie for God's sakes, but you could take Leprechaun and put him in the 80s and have like a rich stockbroker collector, you know, collect odds, trinkets, and gets the statue or gets the gold, and he gets chased down, and he's got a bodyguard and rich eccentric friends. You could have the Leprechaun, you know, at like a bust out of an ice statue or something. You know, you can take Leprechaun and put it in any era, even in space. Well, the space movie sucked, but I mean, you could put it in medieval era. You could put it in a Western. Yeah, it'd be pretty interesting to see Leprechaun versus cowboys. But this is the strongest film in my opinion, because I like the characters, I like the story progression, good finale. I give Leprechaun 6 Back to the Hood a 6 out of 10. And that concludes my review of all the Leprechaun films total, with Warwick Davis anyways. There's a WWE produced one called Leprechaun Origins that came out in 2013, but that's like a rat creature, so I wouldn't have it on. And then there's a new one called Leprechaun Returns, which is 2018. I'll have to find that one, probably rent it. But yeah, so I'm hoping for, they need to like get a new star. Peter Dinklage is a Leprechaun. Those are my thoughts on the Leprechaun films with Warwick Davis.